Hello, John Polk here. I am going to continue the reading of Love Marketing, the New Reality in Chapter 3, Down to Business. Now, in the last chapter, I ended it with 3 words that probably shocked some of you, especially you Stoic types. I said, actually, the words, I love you. So this chapter is going to explain where I'm coming from, and I promise you that's not as weird as you may think. So here we go. Chapter 3, Down to Business. Not too many years ago, I would not have said, I love you to anyone, except those closest to me. In fact, I could never have imagined myself saying this to strangers. As a young and aggressive entrepreneur, my goals were targeted towards financial success and reaching the goals of my ambitions. And yes, I was often guilty of blind ambition. I wanted to excel, spread my wings, gain the good life, and have it all. And like you, I was willing to work hard towards these goals. I was a dedicated businessman, devoted to my career and winning. Then in time, I came to a point in my life where I began to feel that while I had all this stuff and plenty of money, there was something missing. I began feeling like I was in this bubble, sometimes even aloof from those closest to me, friends, and yes, even my family. Maybe you felt this kind of isolation, or maybe you're stranded in your own bubble right now. Perhaps you look into the mirror and say, hey, I'm not as happy as I used to be. I'm not celebrating life. I just keep being challenged by it. If this is true for you, you're not alone. It doesn't matter if you are the owner of it or top executive of your company, if you are an employee, staff member, or the newest salesperson just coming on board, a gal or guy who answers the phone, or a file clerk. The chances are that you, more often than not, spend a lot of your life feeling far more lost than found. Lots of people share your dilemma, so you're not alone in your uncertainty of self and of others, of where you really want to be and what you really want to have. When I began to realize these feelings within me, I was confronted with my own fears, and this forced me into a lot of self-examination. I realized how cavalier I had always been about keeping up with trends and changes that affected my business and my personal life. I belonged to Shakespeare's worldview. Life was a stage, and I was merely a player. I was so busy trying to make money and to succeed that I often got lost in the process. I didn't like the feeling, and as a result of I began soul-searching and began to realize what I needed was not a change in career, not a cruise to get away from it all, but a new perspective of life itself. I wanted to discover what was truly important to me. And so I began adjusting some of my values, those that were not serving me well or anyone else. And from my reading and study, I gained an epiphany. For one thing, I wanted the best of all worlds. I wanted to make a lot of money, but also I wanted to do some good along the way. With the goal of inquiring into the meaningful, I began to seek answers, and over the following 3 years, I literally read hundreds of books in a sincere attempt to pursue knowledge that I was seeking. Since I didn't know exactly where to look, I did my utmost to look everywhere. I read philosophy, religion, psychology, ancient writings, and science. And I did this with more passion and more commitment than I had ever given anything in my life. Guess what? As I got deeper and deeper into all these wonderful books, and many of them were wonderful, I began to realize I had known the answer all along. I had simply buried it beneath a lot of materialistic concepts that taught we live in a dog-eat-dog world, and success is a result of how well we fight. It doesn't matter if you were born in the richest or poorest family. You were taught that this is the way of the world. The idea of getting ahead is based on all the warring methodologies, starting with the most common of all, beating the competition. This is part of our socialization. We take the time to look down at our lives and down at our businesses, however, as opposed to trying to look into or past them. What comes into our overview is that we are spinning a lot of old wheels and are working a lot harder and under more stress. You will also see that while you have been fighting the competition, you have not been gaining ground but losing it. And this will no doubt make you wonder where you'll be in the next few years, since the competition is obviously growing and getting more and more aggressive. In addition to this, as I have already stated, your cost of doing business is and has been rising. Receiving customers is costing more and more as the price of advertising increases and the result of advertising decreases in effectiveness. Lifetime value is eroding, and the commoditization of everything is going to put most businesses not only in precarious position, but against the proprietary wall. I am going over this only because these are the stark realities in the changing marketplace. And it is these realities that quickly come into focus when we take a bird's eye view of how business is going for the entrepreneur these days. What most do not see, however, is that the new love economy is a reality that is entering into every facet of the so-called consumerism. The consumer has been creating this over at least the past few years. Big business knows this, but the margins do not permit the mammoth companies to respond to this desire of the customer very easily. Indeed, most feel condemned to think of their customers as numbers. But this also applies to many attitudes of small and medium-sized business where leadership can easily reinvent themselves with open hearts and loving policies. They don't, of course, because they have been educated to believe that real business is basically a war machine. Just stop and think about the arsenal of war metaphors that we use in business. I'm going to give you a few right now. Tactics, armament, win battles, defeat the competition, take no prisoners, go for the throat, potent weapons, guerrilla warfare, go get them, sales hits, knock them dead, capture, target, headhunter, make a killing, aim, execute, assault, beat, attack, war room, hostile takeover, war zone, etc. I'm going to stop reading, and I'm just going to make a quick note here. Continue on with the next video if you want to hear more. But think about that. This is the first book I think you've ever heard where my projection and my opinion is that we need to change the metaphors. We need to change the language of business itself. How can we talk about customer service? How can we talk to our employees about loving the customer when we use these words to describe the very methods, the tactics? And there you go, tactics. What is that but another war metaphor? Gary Vaynerchuk talks about the thank you economy. But nobody's talking about the words that we use to describe what we do in business. It's time for a change. See you in the continuation of Chapter 3. Thank you very much.